action.
Yay, okay. Today we're going to finish talking about Candide, and we might get into Romanticism as well a little bit. The main thing that I want to talk about is to give you some of the context for Voltaire. Voltaire, I mean, it's a really funny story when you think about, it's satire, but just like with The Rape of the Lock and with Swift's A Modest Proposal and Gulliver's Travels, there are serious things that are at work as well. So we need to think about some of those serious issues. And we will also want to think about when he is writing. Voltaire was born in 1694, died in 1778, so he died just after the American Revolution began. He is, yes? Pardon? Oh, 1694 to 1778. And I will tell you, I don't think I will ever ask you a date on a test. I probably would never ask a date on a test, but it's important to have the general idea, like to know that, to know when somebody's writing in relation to things like the American and the French Revolution. The American and the French Revolution are indicative of what's going on in the mindsets of the Western world, the people, the philosophy, and that sort of thing that's going on. In that, you have that age of enlightenment, and people are championing civil rights and toleration at this point. There's also, there's the fact that, like, Voltaire is considered probably the greatest figure of his age. Not necessarily the greatest writer, but he's really well known. He's very well known to people like Jefferson, Thomas Jefferson, who wrote what document?
The Declaration of Independence.
Yeah, he wrote the Declaration of Independence. That would have been 1776, yes. So that would be 1776, right before Voltaire died. And when you think about the fact that Voltaire influenced Jefferson, we're here under the influence then of Voltaire, okay? Also, the leaders of the French Revolution took him seriously. They looked to Voltaire as a great figure for liberty. They saw him as a great figure for liberty. He was a champion of civil rights and toleration. He was also an opponent of organized religion, as you can see with that genealogy of syphilis. He got it from, the Franciscans and the Jesuits. These are two very different orders in the Catholic Church. St. Francis of Assisi is the one that you see out, St. Francis is always the one that's like out, in people's gardens. He's the monk that's holding the bird feeder, because he's like, oh yay, the animals and all that. Am I right? Why do I feel like I'm saying something wrong? Okay, somebody could research. If you find out that I'm wrong, that it's not St. Francis of Assisi, I'll give you bonus points if you can tell me who it is, because I'm sure.
Is it Saint Animals?
Yeah.
Is that, yeah, that's right.
That's Francis of Assisi?
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Okay, I thought so, but it's just suddenly it was like, how you get a word that you're spelling right and it looks wrong. It doesn't look like it. But those Franciscans have that one kind of charism. Jesuits are known for their ability to argue anything. They're casual. They're not casuists in reality. Well, maybe. But they argue, they're very rational and reasonable, and they're scholars. And so you got two different orders that are of monks, and he attacks both of them. And he also attacks everybody else. He attacks the Jews. He attacks, everybody, right? So, but he's an opponent of organized religion and the established church. He's also an opponent of aristocracy. He didn't like the decadence of the aristocracy. He did not like the decadence of the aristocracy. What's decadence?
Hoity-toity, that's the word that comes to mind.
Hoity-toity, yes. But also...
Wait, what's the word I'm sorry?
Decadence.
I feel like I guess I like the glamour of it, like all the,
Yes.
like the whole procedures of things and.
Well, that decadence, yes, if you're being decadent, you
I
are.
like the decorations when I know.
Good, yeah, because it would be spending lots of money. The aristocracy would have very well stocked cabinets or pantries, and they would have the richest, the most expensive furniture, the most expensive interior design. They would have the fanciest horses. I would say cars, but horses. But he doesn't like, it's what you see in The Rape of the Lock, when it's like her dressing table and it's stuff from all over the world. And he doesn't like, he's opponent of that decadence of the aristocracy and the suffering that it's established on. And there's a really important turning point in there's a turning point in the story that we want to see. Do you remember when okay, we've got this whole, it's the best of all possible worlds, that is that Leibniz rationality, that absurdity of it's the best of all possible worlds when people are, dying under earthquakes and things like that. But look at page 552. And Candide finally says, in the middle of 552, this is the middle of chapter 19. He says, I must give up your optimism after all. Oh, Pangloss, cried Candide. It's right at the middle there. Oh, Pangloss, cried Candide. You had no notion of these abominations. I'm through. I must give up your optimism after all. What's optimism? Said Cacambo. Alas, said Candide, it is a mania for saying things are well when one is in hell. It's, that is so true. Okay, now think about those. You need to all know those lines. They're really important. I must give up your optimism after all. And what is optimism? Remember, we put on the board scientific determinism, philosophical optimism. What is that optimism? Leibniz is presenting optimism. It's the best of all possible worlds, or it's the only possible world. But the problem is, it doesn't account for human suffering, because it is a mania for saying things are well when one is in hell. Candide says this about Pangloss's philosophy. He says it to Cacambo. And I noticed that Brennan is writing over there, and I would bet she is, because she's had me before. She's writing Candide says to Cacambo about Pangloss. Right? Good. Okay. Because that's the kind of answer you would have to give on the test, right? So, who says it? To whom are they speaking? What is that optimism? Whose idea is that? Okay. Yes?
And what did you say philosophical optimism was?
It's Leibniz. It's what Leibniz is saying, that all things work together harmoniously, so that it's all necessary. That Leibniz is not denying God and that God exists. But Leibniz is saying that, Leibniz is arguing that God created it all to be harmonious, and when something goes wrong, well, it works out for good in the end. And so it really wasn't wrong. In other words, God needs the bad stuff to happen, which is a problem, to say that God needs one person to suffer in order for everything to work out. I mean, then you're saying God needs evil, so there's a problem with that theologically. What is it that sparks that response? What does Candide see before that, in the paragraph before?
The slave?
The slave, yes. They have sailed to the New World, right? They have sailed to the New World at this point on 552, and they have been to El Dorado, or they've been to the land of El Dorado, where everything's wonderful, and stupidly they're going to leave. But they have, now he sees this slave. El Dorado would be where?
Spain? No.
Not in Spain. They've sailed away from,
Oh,
like Mexico, South America,
Right.
Central America, one of those two. I mean, there isn't really an El Dorado, but that's where it's the New World. South and Central America.